Hello friends, welcome to JavaFx GUI tutorial. Now you are watching part 3 of the subseries Layout Managers of JavaFX. In this video, we will look at how to use grid pane as well as how to turn on the grid lines. So this is the example we want to create. If you see here, we have a button control. This is the second button control and this is the third button control. After that, we are displaying the image. So all these controls are packed using the grid pane control. So grid pane is organized as rows and columns of cell. Alright, here we can add child node and place it in a cell by row index and column index. So let's say we have grid pane defined just like this. So you can specify column index. So indexes start from 0, 1, 2. So this will be column index and row index will come like 0, 1, 2. By making use of these two indexes, so top to bottom and left to right. So likewise the column index and row indexes grows, and we can specify a specific cell by means of column index and row index. So here if you see, this is a column index 2 and row index 1. So instead of specifying the row index first, the JavaFX functions usually give precedence to the column index. So you will specify column index first, then row index next. Then you will also specify the span. A node can grow and occupy more cells by using the row span and column span. So if you specify call span as 2, let's state you specified the controls position as 0, 0 and column span as 2 and row span as 1. That means the control will occupy only one cell location if control is placed like this. For this one I'm stating, so this is position and this one is column span and row span. Row span if you see 1, that means control won't go beyond this cell, but column span if you see, it climbs the space for next cell in the column. So that means whatever control you add, that will go inside this white box. Even though there are 9 cells here, one control can take more than a specific cell. So that is defined by the row span and column span. Suppose instead of row span 2, if you would have specified row span also 2, then call span 2, then row span 2, so it will grow like this. Already it got expanded here, then row span. So whatever control you add, that will occupy this much space. So that's what called row span and column span. The padding is controlled by set padding method, which takes insert. That means, so if this is the containing pan, let's state, and let's state you add the grid pan like this, and let us take this same example. It contains 3 rows and 3 columns, and using the set padding method you can specify the insert. That means you can specify the margin by specifying the inserts. And if you see here, the insert is specified as 5, 10, 10, 10 like that. So you can specify the margin using the insert, then you can give that insert to the set padding method. Control spacing can be decided by the set horizontal gap as well as set vertical gap. So if you specify one for horizontal gap and one for vertical gap, then when you place control inside this cell, there will be gap between the controls. So this will be the horizontal gap and this one will be the vertical gap. So you can set that also using the set h gap and set v gap methods. Alright, now we will look at the example. So this time also we create border pan, then we also create a grid pan, and in the grid pan we are setting the alignment and we set position as center. So this means this will be your grid pan, and if you add some grid, the grid will grow from the center. So based on cells which you pack, 2,2 it will be in the middle, 3,3 it will grow like this. Say for example, since we put position as center, the grid will grow from the center. And if you see, this is the center. So grid pan alignment, we set it as a center. Next we set padding for our grid pan, and we give inserts of 1, 1, 1. Then we specify horizontal gap as well as vertical gap. That's also 1 for our grid pan. Then we create a scene and we pass our border pan. We already created border pan, and we create scene out of the border pan. Then we will put our grid pan inside this border pan. But before that, if you see, here we are creating button, sample button 1, sample button 2, sample button 3, like that we create 3 buttons. Then we make use of the add method. Here if you see, we created a grid pan, but we doesn't specify cell size. So here if you see, based on the parameter that we pass here, the cells will be created. So since I already created an example, for explanation purpose I can draw the grid pan. So this is the column index 0, column index 1, row index 0, 1 and 2. So if you look at our first button control, let's mark this as, let us mark this as A, and position if you see, column index 0, column index 0, row index 0. So this is the position for our button control A, and it spans one column and one row. One column, one row. That means this is the location for our button A. Next, we create one more button B2. Here we specify column index as 1, this one, row index as 1, this one. This is control B. And if you see, column span 1, row span 1, this is the location for B. Next, we create one more button, button 3, and the column index is 1, that means this, and row index 2, this one, row span, call span 1, 1. So that means this is the third button's location. And if you see, all buttons are having the 1 cross 1 row call span, and this position will tell the grid pan how many grid exist. So very first time, if you see, we specify 0, 0. That means there will be only one cell that will be aligned in the center. After that, when you add second control, it knows that it needs to create, since the location is here, it needs to create 4 cross 4, 2 cross 2 grid cells. Then here the row index is 2, that means there will be 3 rows. So likewise, the border pan, the grid pan, when adding the control, knows how many cells to place. So here we placed 3 buttons. Next, if you see, we create image file and we create image view. So we already did this many times. Here we specify the location of the file, we create the file object, then we create image view object and we store this as image view 1. The same way we create one more image view. There are 2 image view we are creating. Alright, now we will state this image v1 as D and image v2 as E. Next, grid pan dot add image v1, that means D we are adding, to the location column span 0, this row span 1, this is the row span, right, 1, column index 0, this is column index 0, then a row index 1, this is the row index 1, so this is the location. Next, column span 1, of course we cannot put a column span of 2, because there is already one control here. So here we are giving call span as 1 and row span as 2. That means, so our image v2, not v2, v1, it is D. D will be placed here, occupying, D will be placed here, occupying 2 rows. So we can say D. D is created here and it get added to our grid pan. Next, we are adding the second image v2, and v2, if you see, row index, column index 1, this is the column index 1, and row index 0, this one, position is decided, no span, no row span, no column span, that means image will be added on this location. So this is how we create grid pan and add the control nodes. So after this we set a title for our stage grid pane, then we are showing the primary stage. Alright, once grid pane is ready, we add our grid pane to the border pane, and here we are making call to center. That means when we create the stage, this will be our stage. Stage contains border pane, so top, left, right, bottom, and this one will be the center. Inside the center we will take our grid pane GP and we add it to the center part of our border pane, and this is the G pane with all the control packed. That's all. Now we will go to the demo. So here is our previous example. We will close this and we will create the new example, copy and refactor paste. So we are still using border pane with the grid pane. And we will remove all these from our previous example, and we will create the code. Before that, I am clearing all unused imports. So first, inside the start method, we will create our border pane and grid pane. Border pane we created multiple times in our previous video. So it's from JavaFx scene layout. Grid pane also from the same package, scene layout, grid pane. And grid pane we are setting center position. So now grid pane as well as border pane is ready. Next we will set inset or border or even the frame margin for our grid pane. Then we give a slight gap between horizontal and vertical spacing. A slight gap means just a 1 unit gap when controls are packed. After that, for border pane set center, we are passing our grid pane. That means our border pane is packed with grid pane, and the grid pane will be in the center. Now we will build this once and run it. Okay. Since there is no scene, we cannot run it at this moment. Next, we create a scene, JavaFx scene, and we give our border pane. So the border pane acts as a root for our scene, and this is the scene width and height. So for primary stage, which we receive here as parameter, we are setting this as scene. So the root node is our border pane. Next, we create 3 button controls. and we add it to our grid pane. So grid pane, and you can see how we are arranging the grid pane. And now we started adding the controls to the grid pane. These stuffs are already explained. Next, we create two image view. So file is from java.io, image view from JavaFx scene, image.image view, and if you see the first image view, so you can look at the parameter here. First one is the child control, column index, row index, column span, row span. So that's the add method, and here we are adding image v1, image v2. We already created those, and column index, row index, column span, rows, column span, and row span. A row span is 2. That means this will, first image v1 will occupy 2 cell position row wise, and image we are loading it from gtemp. So here is the image location, gtemp. We have 2 image. So these are all the image v1, and this one is v2. And if you see v1, since it's going to occupy 2 row, and here itself you can compare height wise, image v2 is bigger. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 controls added to our grid pane, and this grid pane was already added to the border pane, and the border pane is used while creating the scene, and scene is added to the primary stage. Primary stage is coming here as parameter. So that means we completed our example, and okay, we haven't yet shown this primary stage. We will do that now. So here we are adding our primary stage, YouTube coding examples, grid pane. Alright, that's all here. Now we will build this once and run our grid pane. And if you see, the grid pane is aligned in the center, set alignment. Then we added the control. There are 3 rows, row 1, row 2, and row 3, and this spans for 2 rows. You can clearly see that here, row 1, row 2, and row 3, 2 columns. This is column 1 and this is column 2. So we packed all our control, and when the stage resizes, and if you see, the grid takes place, the grid takes place the center position inside the border pane. Alright, now we will close this. So to see the grid, we will set center, here we can even do that before adding the grid pane to the border pane. So here I'm setting the grid line visible as true. We will remove this, it's not required, but just for understanding purpose I just added that grid line visible. Now we will run the file. Here you can see the grid lines. So row 1, row 1, row 2, row 3 are row index 0, row index 1, row index 2. Similarly, column index 0, column index 1. So it's a pack of 6 cells. All right. Now we will comment this. Okay, that's all here in this video. Just now you saw the demo. Thank you for watching. Bye.